And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to the latest episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, Tony Defeo, and thank you for joining me on this, it's very exciting Friday night. I mean, we're almost on the brink of the Steelers' first playoff game in 3 years. And to make matters even more exciting, they're taking on the Browns, their hated rivals, a team that has gotten better this year. After years of hype, seemingly many years of hype, it's only been a couple of years, but it seems like people were on that hype train a couple of years ago. They didn't come through 2018. They didn't come through last year, but this year the Browns are back in the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. They're the number 6 seed in the AFC. And if you know anything about math and the playoffs, the first round this year, it's always a combination of 9, 2 versus 7, 4 versus 5. Well, not 1 versus 8 because there aren't 8 teams yet. And since the Steelers are number 3 seed and 3 plus 6 is 9, that means Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to be facing each other this Sunday night at Heinz Field in the wild card round. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. I'm just fired up. I love the playoffs. There's nothing like the NFL playoffs. And just want to welcome some people to the live chat. There's Kathy Ford, a regular, Michael O'Malley, another regular, Jared Devil, yet another regular. See, they're all fired up too, waiting with anticipation for this playoff matchup. And before I get started, I just wanted to encourage you all to please check out our YouTube channel where we bring you podcasts each and every day. There's this one, there's the Steelers preview, Steelers hangover with myself and Brian Anthony Davis. There is the Sco Bro show with Dave Schofield and his brother Rich. There's Know Your Enemy with Michael Benedict. See, I always screw that up. Michael Beck and Jeffrey Benedict, better known as Michael Benedict. And then we have audio exclusive shows like the Retro Show, the Live Mic, the Stat Geek, Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman. And I forgot one. The YouTube channel has added another one, and that's the Touchdown Under Show. It used to be audio only. Now it is on YouTube, so you can check those guys out. I think it's every Saturday. I gotta get this right. And we're also on Facebook. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, we're live on all of our podcasts. All of our YouTube podcasts are also live on Facebook. So please check that out and check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website where we bring you news, commentary, film breakdown. As we like to say, it's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. And I have some more folks joining me in the live chat. There's Ezra, Gyro, Manny Mendoza, Aaron Lanier, Team Money, my man Terry, Sean, Andrew Lee, Pamela Gormley. Wow, Snowman, John Lee. Okay, so we got a lively crowd tonight, and I'm excited. And the Steelers, of course, they finalized the Bills kind of helped them finalize their number 3 seed by destroying the Dolphins on Sunday afternoon while Pittsburgh was playing its backups, a lot of its backups anyway, and losing a close one to the Browns at First Energy Stadium. It wouldn't have mattered the outcome of that game since the Bills destroyed the Dolphins, knocked them out of the playoffs. The Bills secured the number 2 seed, and the only thing the Steelers could have affected, I guess, was the Browns' playoff prospects. But I think, like I said last week, Mike Tomlin made the right decision by resting several of his key starters, including Big Ben Roethlisberger, and T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Marquise Pouncey. And, you know, if you look at the injury report that was turned in on Friday, there weren't really any players on it. I think there's Chris Boswell still might be a question mark. But other than that, and unfortunately, Joe Hayden will miss the game after testing positive for COVID-19. That was confirmed last Saturday. I think the news first came out. Other than that, the Steelers are in some pretty good shape. Whereas the Browns, on the other hand, they have a lot of players on the injury report, including Olivia Vernon, who will miss the postseason with a torn Achilles. And they have 8 players, I believe 8 players, maybe around that, maybe a little bit less now. I don't know the exact number, but they have a number of players on their COVID list. And their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, will miss the game because he is on the COVID list. So the Browns are in, it might be their first trip to the playoffs in nearly 2 decades. And I'm sure they were excited about making it, and they had every right to be, as I wrote about earlier in the week. They had every right to be excited about clinching a playoff spot, even though they clinched it against a lot of Steelers backups. But it's going to be a tall task for them to come in here to Heinz Field on Sunday night. That's when the game is, Sunday night, 8:15 on NBC. It's going to be a tall task for them to come in here and win that game. So I'm not counting them out. Don't get me wrong. I've seen everything in my 40 plus years now as a fan of the Steelers, the NFL, and basically sports in general. So I'm going to be just as nervous as ever watching that game. But I think the Steelers have a pretty good chance of walking out of there Sunday night with a win. But I'm not really looking that far ahead. I just want to watch the game and enjoy well, I shouldn't say enjoy. It's hard to enjoy those 3 hours. It really isn't it. And if you're a diehard fan of a team, I mean, watching the playoffs without a dog in the fight, to me, it's the greatest thing ever. Sitting there for 3 hours watching these winner go home stakes that make the NFL playoffs the greatest postseason tournament in all of sports. I don't care what anybody says. You can give me the Stanley Cup, you can give me the NCAA men's basketball tournament, which I think is excellent. But the NFL, it's just glorious. I just love it. So, the Steelers are in it, and I'm not really looking ahead to anything other than I just want to enjoy as best as I can those 3 hours on Sunday night again, or however many hours it lasts. Hopefully, it's not an overtime game where I might not be here next Friday talking to you. I am getting up there. I don't know if my heart can stand an overtime playoff game, but we'll see. We'll see. But it's going to be fun, and it's going to be exciting, and it's something that I think we can all appreciate a little bit more since it's been 3 years. Last year was depressing, or at least disheartening, with everything that happened with Ben earlier in the year, and for them to hold it together as well as they did with Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges and come within a win and some help. They needed a win and some help by week 17 to make it in. I thought that was a valiant effort by them, but it was still disappointing because they did have the inside track on a playoff spot with a few weeks to go, and they kind of fell apart offensively. Whatever guts and courage they were showing on offense for those couple months after Ben went down, it kind of went away over this last few weeks, and they didn't make it. In the year before, it was even more depressing because they had a really strong team led by Ben and Antonio Brown, and they had a 2.5 game lead in division with 6 weeks to go, early December or late November, and they let that slip away, and they missed out on the playoffs. So it's something we can I think really appreciate because it's I know we like to say we don't celebrate the playoffs, but come on, yes we do. Otherwise, why are we looking forward to Sunday night so much if we don't celebrate the playoffs? We do celebrate the playoffs because it's a special thing. So again, to repeat myself for like the 8th time, I can't wait, and I think it's gonna be a good night for the Steelers. I really do. I think they're gonna have their way with the Browns, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a nail biter too. That's just how it goes. That's what's so great about about sports. That's why I call sports the greatest reality TV show, because you just never know what's going to happen. A lot of people think these games are rigged and fixed, but if they really were, if you really believed that, would you be watching? Would it be any fun if you thought these games were predetermined? No. And that's why we watch, because we love the unknown. We love sitting down in front of our TVs at 8 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, especially for the playoffs, and knowing that 3 hours from now, we're either going to be feeling really great or really bad. and that's why we sign up for this stuff, right? As fans, that's why we sign up for you know, the diehard side of being a sports fan, because we want to feel that euphoria, but we also know that you know, the lows can be pretty bad too. So it's a hobby unlike any other, and when it reaches this point of the season, whether you're a football fan or a fan of any sport, any team, if you're a diehard fan, you know this time of year, the playoffs is what you always hope to experience. So we're going to get to experience that on Sunday, and I hope we all enjoy it out there. As far as last week's game, I was impressed with how the Steelers hung in there. You know, they could have phoned it in. You know, the Browns had everything in the world to play for. Pittsburgh had really nothing. Again, you know, as I've been saying for weeks, the 2-3 bracket, there really isn't a whole lot of difference between the second and third seed this year, given the fact that travel wouldn't be much of an issue, because the game, at worst, they would have to travel to Buffalo, and that's not much of a trip. And plus, you know, the weather is pretty much the same in Pittsburgh as it is in Buffalo, and also there aren't really going to be fans in the stands. If Pittsburgh makes it to the divisional round and they have to go to Buffalo, I guess it's kind of like it is here. There aren't going to be many fans in the stands. The announcement came down, I think, on Thursday, that only 2,500 fans would be allowed at Heinz Field on Sunday. So, you know, I lost my train of thought there, but no, I don't think this. That's right. I'm talking about last. Okay, I'm sorry. I fumbled. I'm not used to doing this on Friday night, but the Steelers kind of they went into the day with something to play for, kind of, but not really, because I think Buffalo, they've been on such a roll lately that they were gonna have their way with the Dolphins, which they did. So I thought the Steelers again hung in there and played a really good game and showed a lot of heart and not just staying in the game, but coming back. They were down by 15 points going into the fourth quarter, and it would have been very easy for them to just pack it in at that point and just try to get the fourth quarter over with and go home and start preparing for a team that they knew they were going to have to play the following week, as the way everything was shaping up in the AFC. But instead of that, you know, Mason Rudolph suddenly got hot, and Chase Claypool became the player we all enjoyed earlier in the year. He was a force to be reckoned with. He was a mismatch. He was a matchup problem, and he was a handful. And it looked like the Browns corners had lots of handfuls of his jerseys and of his arms as he was beating them down the field in one-on-one coverage. To my knowledge, there were no penalties called for pass interference late in the game, which it should have been. But anyway, Rudolph hooked up with Claypool for a touchdown. He hooked up with JuJu for a touchdown in the final 2 minutes, and they came up short on the 2-point conversion. But they did almost recover the onside kick. I forget the tight end's name for the Browns. He almost let the ball squirt away from him, and if Pittsburgh recovers there, you got to like their chances of at that point. You know, momentum is so important in sports, and you would have liked their chances of at least getting into field goal range in the final seconds and walking away with a win. And how satisfying would that have been to knock the Browns out of the playoffs? Presumably, I don't remember how the math would have shook out with the Dolphins, just because the Dolphins and the Browns would have both been 10-6. So I don't know how things would have finished out in terms of tiebreakers, but they could have knocked them out of the playoffs, and that would have been funny. But I'm kind of glad that things turned out the way they did, and the Browns are in the playoffs, because you know, I think they're a good matchup for Pittsburgh. I think if they control the line of scrimmage against them like they did in October when they blew them out, what was it, 38-7? If they can control the line of scrimmage and actually run the ball a little bit, maybe come up with a timely timely takeaway. I think this could be a pretty fun night for them, kind of similar to what they did the last time they were in a 3-6 matchup against the Dolphins, 4 years ago? They had their way with Miami. Matt Moore was the starting quarterback in that game for the Dolphins, and they kind of made his life miserable. They made the Dolphins defense, or Antonio Brown made their defense miserable. And I think you're going to kind of see that same thing tomorrow, on Sunday night. So I think it's a very advantageous matchup for them, and I think they can. I think it's going to be a fun night for Steeler fans on Sunday. So fingers crossed. So that's pretty much my first, or was it, I think I might have jumbled 3 topics and for the price of one. But next thing I want to talk about is that divisional, the expanded playoff field, and how the wild card weekend might be the best sports weekend in all of sports, starting on Saturday, when there'll be 3 games, 1 at 4. I'm sorry, 1 at 1, 1 at 4, and 1 at 8. And then the same thing on Sunday, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then the final game of the weekend will be Pittsburgh against Cleveland. I think it's gonna be an exciting weekend. I mean, think about that: 6 playoff games in 2 days. You know, I mean, forget about the NCAA tournament, the college football 4-team playoff. I mean, come on, this has a chance to really surpass both of those. As you know, I know a lot of people love the men's basketball tournament. I certainly do, but I think if you're a huge football fan, it's hard to beat 6 playoff games in 2 days. And I never could figure out why a lot of people refer to the divisional round as the greatest weekend in football. You had 8 teams vying for a trip to the conference championship games, and it's great and all, but to me, the playoffs are the playoffs, and every round is special. And I always enjoyed the old wild card weekend, when 4 games in 2 days, especially when Pittsburgh was had already clinched a bye and had already advanced to the divisional round. I really enjoyed sitting around and watching the wild card weekend, and it's a little tougher to enjoy when you're anticipating the Steeler game, like I'll be doing this weekend. But I'm still going to really. I haven't sat down and watched a lot of football lately, other than the Steelers, because I've been busy with my new job and trying to get my life situated. But when I come home on Saturday from work, hopefully by 3 o'clock or so, they won't make me work overtime like they did the last 2 days. I'm just going to sit around and watch as much football as I can from like 4 o'clock on through 11 o'clock tomorrow night, or Saturday night, I should say, if you're listening on a audio platform. And when I get home from work on Sunday, I'm going to try to catch the 4 o'clock game, all of that, and of course the big one, the main event on Sunday night. So I don't know how you guys feel about the expanded playoff field. I know a lot of people weren't in favor of it initially, but now that it's here, and now that we're going to get to watch a bunch of football, a bunch of high-stakes football in just a matter of 2 days time, 360 minutes of quality football. Hopefully, I think it's a good thing. I still don't want to see an 8-team field for each conference, because I think it's important that that teams have a bye, to at least one bye, to try to clinch or try to capture, because I think it's a huge advantage. But I think 7 teams, that's a good amount. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend and consuming a lot of postseason football. So I'm going to try to take some comments since I've been rambling. And here's one from Ezra. He says, we own Sunday night. Well, let's see. I guess that's true. Yeah. I know Monday night was their night for a while there until they went to Cincinnati a few weeks ago. But Sunday night's been hit or miss. But I think this Sunday night, they're going to be okay. Here's one from Michael O'Malley regarding the playoffs. First round usually is exciting, but the championship game is usually better than the Super Bowl. Well, it's funny you should say that, Michael, because of all the rounds that involve the Steelers, I should say. Wild card round, love it. Divisional round, love it. The one Super Bowl, of course, I never missed a second of it. If Pittsburgh's in it, but the round that really is the most excruciating to me is the championship round when Pittsburgh's in it, because they're so close to the Super Bowl. They're just so close, and when if they make it, it's party time for 2 weeks, right? A lot of people don't like the 2-week build up to the Super Bowl, but I love it. I love the fact that there's a 2-week break in between the conference championship game and the Super Bowl. And but it's hard for me to sit through that conference title game when Pittsburgh's in it, because if they lose that game, to me that's the worst round to lose, even worse than the Super Bowl, because if you make it to the Super Bowl, I mean, nobody could tell you had a bad year. They might, fans might try to mock teams that lose the Super Bowl, but hey, it is so hard to make it to the Super Bowl. There are teams that have never made it. There are teams that haven't made it since the 60s. So if you can make it to the Super Bowl, you've had yourself a great year. So to me, the conference title game, it is exciting, but it's also excruciating if Pittsburgh's in it. So I hope I get to experience that excruciating feeling this year in a couple weeks. And I have a pretty good feeling Pittsburgh's going to make it at least that far. Something just tells me that they're going to blow out the Browns, and if they have to play the Bills the following week, they're going to squeak that game out. And then we'll see what they're really made of if they have to play Kansas City. So on that note, I will close out this half of, I got to get the title right since it's my second episode, Steelers Friday Night Six Pack with Tony Defeo. But if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, don't go anywhere. I am not going anywhere. But if you're listening on one of our audio platforms, please download part 2 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And welcome back. And I got to do some personal. I have to take a personal one from Snowman. He asks, and I thank you for asking, how's the new job, Tony? It's kicking my butt. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of physical work. It's a lot of forced overtime. I have Thursday and Fridays off now, and I have to work all weekends, and so it's rough. But hey, it's a job, and there's potential there to make a good living. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not gonna lie, it's kicking my butt right now. I was walking around like said Fred Sanford all day yesterday. That's how sore I was. So we'll see what happens. But so far so good. I'm at least I'm employed, which is not everybody can say that, unfortunately. Let's see what else we have here before I get on. Before I head on to my next topic. This is from Jay Hanna. I like the Friday night version of Tony. Keep up the great work, sir. Well, thank you. I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm also pretty tired, so maybe that's why. But once I get used to my to this new time slot and my new routine, hopefully I can get back into the swing of things. But next up, I wanted to talk about what did I want to talk about next? Once again, we have to address one JuJu Smith-Schuster and his comments he made. I don't know if it was on Thursday or Wednesday, but when he was talking to the press, people insisted that he gave the Browns bulletin board material because he said the Browns are the Browns. They're the same team I've been playing since 2017, his rookie year. And that's pretty much the bulk of the comment that everybody ran with, because that's just what people do. But he also said that they're a good team and it's going to be a good game and things of that nature. So people are giving him a hard time about that. And I already know what's going to happen if they lose. And I hope they don't lose. But what's going to happen is they're going to use that as an excuse for why they lost. They're going to blame JuJu. They're going to say, well, you fired up the Browns. With that bulletin board material, and this is why they lost. And they're going to cite, the Mike Tomlin interview with Tony Dungy from a few years ago. They're going to talk about Mike Mitchell trying to taunt the Jaguars in the I guess in the tunnel at Heinz Field before that divisional round playoff game. So I mean, I don't know what JuJu was what he really meant there, but I think people are looking are overreacting to it. Honestly, I truly believe that. And you know me, I just don't care about that stuff. I mean, if I was a Browns player, I mean, I wouldn't be like, oh, okay, well now I'm going to try to win. They should be motivated enough because it's a playoff game. I don't think they need any extra motivation. And it's funny about. Excuse me. It's funny about bulletin board material. It's usually only cited by a team after a team wins. Then they talk about it. Oh, we were fired up because of something that so and so said, or because something that was written in the paper, or what have you. But nobody talks about bulletin board material after a team loses. Why? Because it probably doesn't matter to begin with. That's why. So I want you to. I said I've used this example before. I want you to picture yourself fighting Mike Tyson, right? I'm going to fight Mike Tyson, and then Mike Tyson says something about your mother, like, how dare you? Now I'm really extra motivated to kick your butt. You think it's good? You think it would work? No, it'd probably still pummel you to smithereens. So my point is, I don't think that kind of stuff really matters. People talk about like they talk about the JuJu dancing on the Bills logo and how that fired them up. It fired them up so much that it took them almost a half to take the lead, right? I mean, if they were truly fired up for that, wouldn't they have just come in and blown out the Steelers right from the opening whistle? And I must cite this again, Chuck Noll's famous speech before the 1974 AFC Championship game, where he told his players that the Raiders acted like they won the bleeping Super Bowl the other day. And Joe Green and those guys, they talk about how they were fired up and how Oakland had no chance. Well, Oakland was so intimidated, or Pittsburgh was so motivated, I should say, that they only trailed by a touchdown heading into the fourth quarter. So, if Oakland really didn't have a chance, I think they would have found that out right away. So to me, that's just an I don't know. That stuff's kind of fun. I think it's fun to talk about, but I don't like when people attach too much importance to it in a negative way. If you want to do it in a positive way and talk about how talk about it in kind of a fun sort of I don't know what I'm trying to say, like a fun way that doesn't really where it's not like life or death, that's fine. But so many people, when they talk about these kind of comments and dancing and celebrating, they make it seem like, well, the team's undisciplined and the team's not focused and the team's not this or the team's not that, and they try to use it against the Steelers, and they people like Colin Cowherd, they talk about how, well, this is why they don't win, and it's easy to do because you can't prove it. You can't prove that they lost the game or they didn't lose this game because of stuff like this. You can't prove it. They lost. So, okay, well then we're going to throw that in there with everything else. So I don't know. To me, that irks me a little bit because I don't mind players saying it and I don't mind other teams reacting to it, but I don't like when people sort of use it as a tangible reason for why a team performs poorly in an important game. That's just my opinion. I'm somebody who's not moved by stuff like that. It just doesn't, like, if we were in a locker room preparing for a big game and you were screaming in my face, I'd be like, all right, just leave me alone. Just I know it. Just tell me what to do. What are the plays? What are my assignments for this game? I don't need you to yell at me. It's not going to make me play any better. It's like Chuck Noll once said, people act like motivation comes from the mouth and, screaming and yelling and hollering. And I agree with him because this has always worked for me. The greatest motivation is showing somebody how to get the job done. And on my new job right now, what motivates me is people to show me what to do, not swearing and screaming, because you're in a warehouse in this new job of mine. So people are screaming all the time. And it's nice if people just come up to you and say, here's what you're doing wrong. Let me show you how to do this. To me, that's what motivates me. Somebody show me how to do the job, not screaming at me. So to me, I think, individual players are motivated by different things. And I don't think anybody's gonna be any more focused on the Browns squad because JuJu said the Browns are just the Browns. I don't think anybody's gonna either you have the talent to beat the person in front of you or you don't. So I think that's what Sunday's game is going to come down to, not any kind of bulletin board material. So that's my piece on that. And I don't have a whole lot tonight because I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of tired. So I will make it your show now and open it up to some questions. And here's one from Ken Cranston. Are you working for Amazon? No, I'm not working for Amazon. That's not who I'm working for. I'm not going to say who I work for. I don't want to talk about my employer on this nationally televised podcast. Here's one from Ezra. Mark Greenberg picked us in August. He has the only opinion I respect. You mean Mike Greenberg or Mark Greenberg? I don't know. But if you mean Mike Greenberg, I don't even know who you mean. But I certainly agree with that, and I hope you're right. Steelers Chick 46 says media hates the Steelers. Steelers need that for motivation. If you would have said that a couple of years ago, I would have said, you're being silly. But I think national media, for whatever reason, because I don't know if it's because they know that Steeler fans are so passionate about the team that they react to everything negative. I think a lot of national people go out of their way to criticize Pittsburgh. So that's certainly a valid point. And let's see. I was surprised. Here's one from Port Coquimbo. I was surprised to hear that we were 32nd in rushing this year until I realized that they didn't include Alabama. What is the ceiling on our playoff run if every opponent ignores our run game? Well, I don't know. If you would have, if they wouldn't have opened things up a couple weeks ago against the Colts, I would have said they were in trouble. But I think the fact that they have been effective in the with longer passes over the last couple of games, even Mason Rudolph looked really good throwing the long ball the other day. I think that'll help the offense. Maybe they could shut the running game down, but it all rests on Ben's shoulders. I've been saying that since last offseason. It's all about Ben, and they're gonna go as far as he takes them. And if he's on, if that passing game is on, if they're hitting the intermediate passes, the long passes, the short passes, if the receivers are catching the ball and not having critical drops like they did during that slump of theirs, then they're going to be fine and they're going to be competitive. I don't know if they're going to win every game, but they're not going to lose because they couldn't run the ball. That's just my opinion. So we'll move on down here. What else? What we have here? Here's one from Jeffrey Benedict, the legendary Jeffrey Benedict. Tony, are you glad to see the Browns in the playoffs, or do you prefer it when they are awful? I don't really have a preference, to be honest. I think rivalries are fun, but I mean, it wouldn't matter to me if Pittsburgh was if they won the division by 7 games. I mean, to me, it's all about winning in the playoffs and winning the Super Bowl. I think that's the fun part. I don't need the Browns to be a true rival. I don't need the Bengals to be a true rival. I don't need the Ravens. It's fun when it happens. When you can look back on it and go, "Ooh, that was a fun rivalry." But I tell you what, I'm not looking forward to playing the Ravens if they have to play the Ravens. Those things are always fun after the fact, in my opinion. Like looking forward to a game like that, yeah, I don't look forward to that because what if they lose? Like this Sunday, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited, But if they lose, you talk about bragging rights. I know a lot of people, including a female friend of mine who used to be a Steeler fan, and now all of a sudden she's a Browns fan because of Hard Knocks. So having to face her after a loss on Sunday, yeah. So I guess maybe I'm answering my own question. I said I didn't care, but maybe I do care. Maybe it's better when they're all awful. Now that you mentioned it, maybe it'd be better if Pittsburgh's, if the AFC North was like the AFC East during the Patriots reign, and all the other teams sucked. And there's a $5 super chat that I missed when I was rambling on. And I'm sorry I missed that, Snowman. It's from Snowman, our resident Robin Masters, and he says, do you put Matt Father back in a starting lineup or use him as a backup? I got to tell you what. I'm glad that Jeffrey Benedict came on because I know he's a big fan of Kevin Dotson. And so am I. I'd have to go with Kevin Dotson. I think you go with your hot hand this time of year. You don't worry about feelings. You don't worry about, veteran status, anything like that. You do what you can right now to win the game and advance to the next round. Because guess what? If you don't and Matt Filer struggles, they're going to be asking you, well, why didn't you keep Kevin Dotson in there? I don't think you want to answer that question if you're Mike Tomlin. And here's one so thank you for the $5, Snowman. As always, you're always so generous. Here's one from Daniel Bobback. How would you feel about your chances in a rematch with the Ravens in the AFC Championship game? I'd feel great about it, honestly. I mean, I know I just said that it would be kind of scary to face the Ravens in the AFC title game. I think I said that. I've said that in the past. I know that. But what would be scarier to me would be traveling to Kansas City and playing the Chiefs. To me, it would feel a lot like the last time they were in the AFC title game against the Patriots when they had to go to Gillette Stadium a few years ago, and we all tricked ourselves into thinking, that they had a great chance to win, and rightfully so because they were on a 9-game winning streak heading into that game. I don't know. I mean, I would feel a lot better about that matchup than I would about going to Kansas City so I would feel good about it. I mean, they know them. They know how to play against Lamar Jackson. At least they know how to defend the pass against him anyway. So I think they would do okay in that game. I would like their chances. It would be a close game, I think. But when is it never a close? When is it ever not a close game between these two teams? So. And here's one from Jordan Everett. Will we take Browns seriously enough? I think they better. I mean, look, you can't afford to not take them seriously. I mean, you can't afford that. I mean, can you imagine the fallout from a loss to the upstart Browns, a team that people have been dying to elevate to the next level, from that downtrodden franchise to this superstar franchise because of shows like Hard Knocks, because Baker Mayfield's such a personality, and they have Myles Garrett and Jarvis Landry and the receiver whose name I can't remember. Anyway, so they better take them seriously, or if you look past any team in the NFL, you're usually in trouble. So here's a comment from Kathy Ford. It's kind of cool to be tops in a very tough division. Yeah, I mean that's again, it's one of those things to me that's cool after the fact. They did it. They outlasted the Browns and the Ravens, especially the Ravens, who have won the last 2 years. So that's cool that they were able to do that. But before it happens, you're like, oh man, why don't these teams go away? Why don't they just? I'd rather have an 8-game lead, that kind of thing. Here's one from. Oh gosh, I passed it up already. Oh, I missed it, but it said, does Claypool get more snaps in Washington? Oh, absolutely. I don't know who asked that question, but whoever asked that, that's a great question. But yes, Claypool gets more snaps in Washington. Claypool is a beast, and the sky's the limit for him. And to me, in many ways, he was your best offensive skill position player this year. So you have to make him a main focal point of your offense. And here's one from Guy Road. I knew this would come up. What would you do to get Deshaun Watson on the Steelers? I wouldn't do anything until Ben retires, because you can't do anything until Ben retires, because Watson is owed about $40 million a year, and so is Ben. So I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't trade anything. I wouldn't do anything. Would I want him on the Steelers roster? Absolutely, of course. It'd be great to get for Ben to retire and bring in Deshaun Watson. It'd be a fairy tale, but that's what it is. It's a fairy tale. It doesn't really happen very often. Now, if Ben's not on the roster, if Ben's retired and you have a cool $40 million a year to spend, I would trade a couple first-round picks for him. Honestly, I would, because that position is so vital in the NFL. And if I'm the Texans, I'm not trading him. I'm not trading Deshaun Watson. I mean, you'd be silly. He's an established quarterback. You just sign him to a 4-year deal worth $177 million. You keep that guy and you build around him. The fact that they have him and J.J. Watt and they had DeAndre Hopkins, the fact that they had such a good team and they couldn't advance, that's shame on them. They got to get their house in order. They got to get their stuff together. They got to get their GM position filled. I don't know if they did it yet or not, but they certainly didn't fill their head coaching spot. They got to get that all taken care of, and they got to build around this guy. They got to build around Deshaun Watson. It might be too late for J.J. Watt. You know, he's been in the league for a decade now. You know, his best years might be behind him, but you have a young quarterback, an established quarterback. You got to build around him. So if you're asking me what I would trade for Ben or for Watson, 2 first-round picks. I think that's any quarterback of that caliber. And I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan. And any quarterback of that caliber, you have to do what you can to get him. But until Ben is gone, you don't worry about it. And this is something I wanted to talk about that I forgot. Why people are so worried about the future and on the eve of playoffs, Deshaun Watson, the next year's draft, all this stuff. Man, I mean, you know, they're a few wins away from the Super Bowl. You know, I mean, you know, they win on Sunday and you know, it's gonna be such a fun week to celebrate. I mean, anytime you win a round of the playoffs, I don't care what round it is, wild card round, division round, whatever. You know, that's a great year. I mean, you know, they're on the cusp of having a really great season, and people were worried about Deshaun Watson and Sam Darnold and Dwayne Haskins and Carson Wentz and who else? Marcus Mariota. I don't get it. I don't get this obsession with the future. Excuse me. I'm getting all worked up. But yeah, I would definitely in a perfect world I would give up a lot to get Deshaun Watson. But if I'm the Steelers right now, I wouldn't give up anything to get him because they have Ben. As long as Ben's here, that's their guy. So here's one from Jeffrey Benedict. Tell him, Tony, it's freaking playoff football. Yeah, that's right. All caps. Playoff football. Forget if you're watching at home or if you're listening on a podcast, I'm waving a terrible towel. And just so you know, this terrible towel, every time I touch it, they lose. So sorry about that. But anyway, it's freaking playoff football. Forget next year. Let the Browns fans think about the future after we win this week. Next year, can wait until this one ends. Exactly. You know, I'm a veteran of Behind the Steel Curtain, and I've logged on to write my final post-game article every year since I started, and I see somebody working on a mock draft every year, and it's like, oh, mock draft. It's that time of year now. The reality really sets in. It's like waking up at 4:30 on a Monday after a long vacation. Like, oh, it's time to go back to work. I don't want to think about next year right now. I don't want to think about who the quarterback's going to be after Ben retires. I don't want to think about the salary cap implications for 2021. I just want to talk about and get excited about Sunday night and what could happen if they win this game, and how excited I'm going to be, and how, you're just like, I remember when I beat the Bengals a few years ago. I had a flat tire. I had to change my tire before the game when I was coming home from work. And the next day I was waiting at Sears at the Mullet Robinson for like 5 hours. But I was so excited and happy because they won a playoff game. It was their first playoff game in like a half decade that they won. So, that's what the playoffs do to you. Like, it's just such an exciting thing. So I just want to experience this for as long as I can until I have to worry about free agency and mock drafts and the salary cap and who's going to retire, and will they let JuJu walk, or will they franchise tag TJ, whatever, And here's one from Michael O'Malley that I don't agree with. Watson is trash. He is not trash, Michael. I'm sorry. He's not trash. He's a great quarterback. He's just I don't understand these people that say it. They talking these absolutes about these players. Deshaun Watson is not trash. He's a very talented quarterback. There are a lot of trashy quarterbacks out there, and Deshaun Watson is certainly not one of them. I mean, I always my barometer for how good a quarterback is how would I feel if Ben retired tomorrow and he was the new guy. And if you're telling me you wouldn't sign your name in blood to have Deshaun Watson as Ben's replacement, I'm going to tell you you're crazy. Like, I remember I was at the 2019 offseason. Somebody came out with a list of the all-time greatest quarterbacks ever or something. And Ben was ranked 20th, which I thought was fair. And Russell Wilson was ranked 19th. And people were like, oh, Russell Wilson. I wouldn't take him if you gave him to me for nothing. Like, you're crazy. Russell Wilson is fantastic. I mean, maybe I don't agree with the ranking, but I can certainly see why somebody would put him ahead of Ben. Who cares, right? They're both good. Well, on that note, I'm all fired up, baby. I'm all fired up. I'm going to get my terrible towel again. But my mom found this terrible towel, and if you're listening at home on the audio podcast, it's a very old and raggedy looking terrible towel. My mom found it on the street when she was walking her dog back right before the 2005 playoffs, and you know how that ended. So I was only kidding when I said every time I touch this towel, it brings them bad luck, because it's not true. I was waving this towel at Paul Brown Stadium back in 2014 when Pittsburgh destroyed the Bengals, and that famous game where Martavis Bryant went 90. It was at 97 yards. I was in that end zone cheering, waving my towel when he scored. So it's a very lucky towel, and I hope you all at home will be waving your towel and doing whatever superstitious thing you do during the playoffs. That's the only time I break out my superstitious acts or whatever habits, is during the playoffs. So I just want to thank you all for participating. I want to thank you all for watching and listening, and we're almost there. It's was it 9:48? So we're like 46 hours or whatever. I don't know time, but we're pretty close to the moment we've all been waiting for. And that's since week one anyway. We waited all summer for week one. Now we're waiting for the playoffs. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's a great night. And I hope when I see you on the Hangover with Brian on Monday that we're talking about a Steelers victory. Actually, I feel in my heart that we will be. So you all have a great weekend, and go Steelers.